Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I am talking to Fred LeBlanc of Cowboy Mouth. It's no exaggeration to say that these guys have got it covered. And by it, I mean 10 classic tracks by everyone from The Who, Queen, and Ian Hunter to Fats Domino, Rodney Crowell, and even Cher. The New Orleans party rockers have their way with all of them on their fittingly titled new album, Cover Yo Azz, arriving later this summer. They recently previewed the LP by premiering their appropriately rambunctious version of the Replacements Can't Hardly Wait on my site, but a few days earlier, I got on the Zoom box with fun-loving frontman and drummer LeBlanc to talk about singing drummers, going barefoot, growing up in the Big Easy, covering his own ass, and much more. Enjoy. Hello.
Hey man, how are you?
I am good. You can hear me. You can see me. I can hear you. I can see you.
Woohoo! The
Yeah,
wonders never cease.
technology, it is our friend. So,
Sometimes.
sometimes, yeah, well, exactly. That was my point, I think, down the road.
Mhm.
Nice to meet you, Fred.
Nice to meet you. What's your name?
Daryl.
Hey Daryl, how are you, man?
I'm doing well today. How are you, sir?
Good. It's a beautiful day down here in the great southern United States of America.
Well, it's not bad up here in the much superior country of Canada. So,
Why I gotta, why I gotta.
Come on. I think right now we're winning.
It's one of those things, man.
It is what it
All
is.
all the silliness will eventually pass.
Exactly, exactly. And besides, we're not here to talk politics. We are here to talk about music, specifically your upcoming new album, Cover Yo Azz, which
Yeah.
for anybody who can't figure that out from the title, is a covers album. First of all, congratulations on coming up with a title for a covers album that hasn't already been used 1,000 times and doesn't suck. That must have been, I think, maybe harder than recording the album itself.
It was like one of the first things that came to mind, and when it comes to that type of thing, I try not to overthink it. I figured somebody else had probably used it at least 1.5 million times, but what the hell?
Exactly,
Can't
exactly.
worry about it.
Well, that appears to be your kind of whole vibe anyway, right?
I spent a large portion of my life just worrying about everything. And the thing that I found out is that the more I worried about stuff, bad stuff happening, the more bad stuff happened. So I changed my line of thinking and just kind of try to make it to the end of the day, think positive, kick butt, and just do my best, and things work out.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy to have, I think. It's something I've tried to appreciate over the decades myself.
Just experience, man. I like that. I like those posters behind you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, they're
That's
uh,
cool.
they're nice ones. Yeah, I don't
We
I don't have
actually
a cowboy mouth poster, or I would have put that up for you, but
yet.
yet the day is young. Uh,
And neither am I. We
so
we
how?
actually
Uh-huh.
we actually played a show with Iggy Pop in
Oh,
Paris. This is about 1994, I think it was, and it was wild. He was great. He was something else.
oh yeah, he is always something to see. I saw him. I mean, I've seen him, I don't know how many times over the decades, but I saw him just a couple of years ago in Las Vegas, and all-star band, and he's still Iggy. He still comes out,
He's
and you don't know what the fuck he's gonna do, and then he does everything you don't expect him to fucking do. So it's great,
This is true. This is true.
Uh-huh.
Well, all right. Well, let's talk. What's up?
So how long did how I guess I'm so kind of surprised that it took you this long, is what I'm trying to say, to finally get around to doing a covers album.
Well, I'd seen some other friends of ours who had done it. Like Pat Green had done, I think either an album or an EP about 10 years ago. And I always kind of tucked that in the back of my mind. But, I'm a pretty voracious, John and I are both pretty voracious songwriters. And, we had gotten to the point where we thought, well, not really sure we want to do albums anymore. So we were just doing singles, like anywhere from every 2 to 6 months,
Mm.
just put out a new single, work it, and because it seemed like, once, unless you were somebody like Taylor Swift or the
Right.
Beatles or something like that, you put out an album and it kind of disappears from the public consciousness after about a month, whereas,
Yeah.
you used to be able to keep people's attention with an album for like a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes three. And
Yeah.
but I mean, I just wanted to do something that would be fun. And John and I were talking about learning this Who song that we ended up doing on the album, The Real Me,
Mm,
because he loved that song and we'd play it at sound check sometimes. And, it would just kind of be messing around, but it's a very specific song. You can't just throw it out there,
right.
so it's like we had to learn it and everything. And so we were just, John and I were talking on the phone one day. It's like, why don't we just learn the song? We'll go over it with the guys. We'll play it in a different key so you can sing it comfortably and still give it everything you got.
Right.
And he just goes, man, we ought to just do a covers album. And my thinking wasn't as much why, as much as why not? Sounds like fun, And at this stage of my life and my career, I mean, if it's not fun, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, well,
So
exactly.
yeah, so we just, and the album has no rhyme or reason. There's no there's no real thinking about it. We do everybody from Sinatra to the Replacements to
Hmm.
Fats Domino to Queen to
Ian Hunter.
Crystal Gale
Yeah.
to REM. It's just basically what tickled our fancies at that moment. Because if we started the record today, if we started making the album today, it would be like 10 different songs.
Well, I
So
was going to say it must have been
mhm.
difficult to put together a list, not because of trying to find stuff, but trying to come up with just 10 or well, yeah,
Well, like
10,
I
just
said,
10
we
songs,
could, like I said, we could, you know, we if we started making the album today, it'd be a
Yeah.
completely different album. I mean,
Was the initial list like 100 songs?
no, no, no. What it was
Hmm.
just I whenever we do albums, I'm always looking for balance. I'm the one who pretty much ends up putting them all together, sequencing and all that. And I was looking for balance. And this we had this group of songs, and there just seemed to be a really nice balance to it. As far in one direction one song would go, would be as far in another direction another song would go. And it seemed
Okay.
to really have a nice balance and flow. And once I got there, just something said, okay, stop. And if I didn't want to overthink this project because it wasn't me or John's songs, I was trying not to overthink it. I was just going on instinct. The guys all played great, and it just kind of happened. And when I listened back to it, when I was finished mixing and mastering and everything, I was like, wow, this is. If I don't mind saying so myself, this is actually pretty good. This is really good.
Yeah,
It
no, I like
flows.
it because you walk the line between there are some covers albums you get that are like Xeroxes almost, where people
Yeah.
really are faithful to the original. And then there are the other ones where people just go absolutely nuts and totally change everything about it. So you guys kind of are in a nice
It,
middle ground there where you're putting your own stamp on these things,
mhm.
but not necessarily, going crazy with them. How do you walk that line when you're listening to a song like I don't know whether it's Can't Hardly Wait or Just Another Night, and you go, okay, let's do this. How do you sort of then work that through your head, you know?
Well, different songs have different inspirations. Like "Can't Hardly Wait" is an old Replacement song. The band of the Replacements from the '80s, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I was a huge Replacements fan, like in the early '80s. I was fans of the albums like Hootenanny and all that stuff
Hmm.
before they became more in the public consciousness. Not that they ever really were during their lifetime, but
Yeah, I think
more
Paul
so.
Westerberg would argue with that, argue with you about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But it was one of those things where they had put out a bootleg cassette. They themselves had put out a bootleg cassette that
Right.
they swiped from a fan who was recording a show illegally, and he just came up
Yeah.
and said, "All right, we'll take that from you, thank you."
Yeah.
And
When
it
the
was
shit
them.
hits the fans, it's called.
The shit hits the fans, and they're
Yeah.
playing to maybe 20, 30 people somewhere in Oklahoma City, and it's just a bad night. And they start doing a bunch of covers, but they also played they throughout, the song Can't Hardly Wait.
Hmm.
Westerberg didn't finish the lyrics, and they just played it just for the hell of it. It was unreleased, and they were obviously still working on it, but it just had such a fire and an intensity to it. I just love that version. And Bob Stinson, the original lead guitar player, was just, sizzling all over it. And the band plays like a bunch of angry, desperate kids, stuck in Oklahoma City.
Which they
you know,
were. Yeah.
and nothing wrong with OKC, but
No,
it's just
no.
kind of like just being that young and that lost, and just living in that moment. And when they released the song later on a later album a few years later called "Pleased to Meet Me," it's a great version, but it's slowed down, it's quieter, it's approached a lot more as almost a pop song with like a
Right.
horn section. And I really miss that really just insane crunch. But I love the lyrics of the refined version, because it's kind of like a love letter from being on the road. And so we just kind of combined the two, and that was my dream for it. We had started playing it live just for fun to kind of wake the guys up before lockdown, like the last year or two before lockdown. I would just throw out a song title, and they would say either they knew it or they didn't know it. And if they didn't know it, it was a lot more fun. All right, it's in A, let's go. And just, but it had a really interesting reaction from the rest of the guys. It forced them to listen because we've gotten to a place, we tour a lot, we work a lot, and sometimes you find yourself phoning it in. Not often, but once in a blue moon for us, it was like kind of like, okay, just get through it. But and it's like, wait, that's not what we should be doing, because
Right.
my philosophy is like, no matter whether you're Kiss playing a stadium, or the Jimmy Buffett cover band playing Holiday Inn on a Tuesday night.
Or the
My
Replacements
my
playing for
theory,
20 kids in Oklahoma City, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. My theory is, my the thing I've learned is that, like, as far as I'm concerned, there's millions of people that would give their left arm to be me, not me specifically, but to have that ability to do that and have that
Right.
experience. There's millions of people that give their left arm to be one of us on our worst night,
Right.
on our very worst night, on that, crappy night in Oklahoma City, and I try to remember that, and I try to make that part of the part of the experience of the band, and I think we've been successful at that. It made everybody listen, which is what you need a band to do. You need everybody to listen to each other. So when
Right.
we play these songs, and that's this project outgrew that, it came out of that.
Hmm. Were there any songs that you approached that didn't really work or that you had a harder time kind of adapting to your
No, no,
sound, or
no.
did it
It was
all?
no. It was a really fast thing. It really happened
Mhm.
quickly. Each song has a different story. Like, I tell you, probably the hardest song for me personally to do was the last song, the Hootie song, "City by a River,"
Hmm.
simply because it was really personal to me. All those guys, the Hootie guys, they write their songs in tandem. Like, they each get credit for every song, no matter who's the primary writer. And the primary writer on this was Mark, the guitar player with the curly hair. They all arranged it. They all wrote it, and it was an obscure song, but the song I know is really important to Mark, and it's a beautiful tune.
Hmm.
And so that one was really kind of, I almost gave up on it a few times, but then while we were working on it, just something in the back of my head just said, keep going, don't stop, keep going, keep going. So that
Right.
was the biggest challenge for me. Um, I didn't know what to expect when we did Fat Bottom Girls. I wasn't really a fan of that song specifically, but John
Hmm.
really liked it. And so I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. And he approached it, he said, let's try approaching it like a bluegrass. I was like, okay. And so, like, with the shuffle, for me, it's kind of more like Elvis, DJ Fontana, Bill Black, because
Right.
that's kind of what I related to. And I kind of brought that to it. And, when John was singing it, he was having trouble with an approach because we had never played it live.
Hmm.
And so it's like, well, I don't, he tried singing it regularly like he normally sings. It's like, slow down, this isn't working. And then we just thought about it, and we just, you kind of had to bring the spirit of fun back into it. It's like, well, you know what? Why don't you try singing it like a pirate? He goes, yeah, I kind of sound like a pirate. It's like, yeah, sing it like a pirate. And if you noticed, there's two lead vocals because
Right.
his voice overlaps
Right.
each line, because that makes it more comfortable for him. Live, obviously, we can't do that, and he sings it fine, but it allowed him to kind of express that personality again, and being that treasure, And
I
so,
think sing it like a pirate is probably good advice for any song, anywhere, anytime.
I believe the children are our future. Treat them well.
There you
I
go.
will always love ye.
It's already 5 times better.
Exactly. There you go. There you go.
So I think people who are familiar and have seen you a bunch live might be kind of surprised that there aren't some songs on here that they might expect or some bands that they might expect because you guys,
Hmm.
you've covered Stones and ZZ Top and The Doors and so obviously Springsteen. You got a lot of I think traction with your cover of Born to Run a few years back.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people might have gone, oh, that's what I'll hear on this album. But it seems like you kind of wanted to go away from those things and do something different.
I've never been afraid of cover songs.
Hmm.
We recorded a cover song for our first album back in '92. Uh, it didn't make the album. It was on the album, but the second one is a kind of a filler track. It was like a punk rock version of Loretta Lynn's "Don't Come Home Drinking with Lovin' on Your Mind." And
Nice.
and I like stuff like that. I just we're a song oriented band. The
Hmm.
song has always been the main thing. We get a lot of notice because of our show, because of me being just a ham, and and I don't mind that. I like that, but it's always been a very song oriented band. I kind of pride myself on being hopefully somewhat of a decent songwriter. John's always been a strong writer, and if we're going to play a song, I would like it to be a good song, and
Hmm.
sometimes you just have to kind of reach beyond yourself. Like we did a whole EP of Mardi Gras cover songs,
Hmm.
like about 15 years ago. We did an old country song called "The Lord Knows I'm Drinking" on an
Hmm.
album called Fearless. I just love songs. I just love really good songs, and you know this is you know this is a real strong package of songs. And like I said, there wasn't. I'm thinking about it more talking to you than I thought about it when we were putting it together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great piece of work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've covered a bunch of Who songs over the years, so I wasn't
Yeah,
surprised to see the real me in there.
yeah.
Um, I got to give you full points because to do those songs, you have to not only handle the Daltrey part, but the Keith Moon part. That's like double, you
Well,
know.
here's the deal. Here's the deal. To be honest with you, we did a live version of "Won't Get Fooled Again," and I sang lead
Mhm.
on it. This is like 20 years ago, and yeah, I handled the Keith Moon and the Daltrey parts. But on this version, that's not me singing. That's John Thomas
Oh, I'm
Griffith
sorry.
singing. No, it's
Okay.
totally fine. Totally. I
Yeah, I
mean,
thought it was you.
I'm flattered that you thought it was me because John's probably the best singer in this band. But
Mm,
he that was the impetus for the whole album
mm.
because he was like he would just pull it up at sound check, and if you know the song, it sounds easier than it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was always like, John, let's just do the song. Like, well, I don't, and I was like, so, I laid it out kind of like an arrangement, kind of thinking, okay, first of all, the Who's version has Keith Moon going all the way through it, which is
Right.
great, which I can't do. And I wanted it a little faster and a little more punk rock. And by doing that, my playing had to be just like
Right.
a streamline. And I mean, there's a few fills in there, but you know, if I find that if I do fills all the time, it's just kind of like masturbation, which is fun.
Maybe just not on stage though.
But yeah, just not on stage and not on recording. So
Exactly,
and
exactly.
so no, that's John that sang the real me, and that's one of the best vocal performances I've ever heard him do.
It's good. Well, I mean, I just think I am just as thrilled that, you've got the guy from the Red Rockers in the band and two guys from Dash Rip Rock. I am old
Yeah.
enough to, remember all of these bands. So,
Yeah. And the fact
kudos
that
to you.
all three of us lived through those experiences is great.
Well, exactly. And you're still here. Yes.
Sometimes barely, but it is
Uh-huh.
what it is. Yeah, John. In fact, the Red Rockers did two reunions. They did one about a month ago, and they did one last year.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and I was trying to get Dash to do reunions with the original lineup of me, Bill Davis, and Hokey Hickle, and we talked about it, and there seems to be enthusiasm. It might happen down the road, but everybody's got other lives right now, and we all got busy things to do.
Of course, of course. So back to the concept of singing drummers. I don't think guys like you get enough credit because it is a tall order to handle both of these things at once. I mean, a guitar player, it's it's two limbs and singing. You got all four going, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, to be fair, you know, I don't mean to sound arrogant. Please forgive me if I do, but honestly, playing drums and singing, to me, it's the most natural thing in the world. It's the easiest thing in the world. I
Oh,
mean,
well.
it's not. I mean, physically, it's difficult because it's a lot of wear and tear. But
Hmm.
in terms of what it is, it's always been easy for me. It's always been easy for me. I was born deaf because of some blockage in my ears, and they couldn't fix it till I was older, about 3 or 4 years old. So my folks used to lay my head on stereo speakers. So apparently, I could sing before I could talk. So
Wow.
singing, so music has always come kind of second nature to me. Not that I don't work at it. I do work
Yeah.
at it, but if you put me up there, it's it's the most natural thing in the world to me. And as far as the singing frontman thing, I wanted to move the drums up because I just wanted to be where everybody else was, where the
Hmm.
party was. I didn't want to be in the back going, "Hey guys, I have a song." It's like, what's the joke? What's the last thing a drummer says before he's fired? "Hey guys, I have a
Because I got a
song."
song, yeah.
And so it was never about putting anybody else in the back. It was about or just like there being a really powerful front line.
Right. Have you ever seen the garage punk band called the OCs?
No, I have not.
They are from LA and they have two drummers,
Ugh,
both right at the front of the stage, playing in sync, and then just like,
really?
yeah, OSEES. They go under a bunch of different versions of that name, but right now they're going under OSEES.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean they're not the singer guitarist is over on the stage right, and
Uh-huh.
that's his spot, and the keyboard player is like behind them, bass player on the side, but these two guys right front and center, and they're just it's very punk, so they're like
Oh
just
yeah, yeah,
hammering
yeah.
away high speed,
That's
right in
cool.
sync, perfect.
We
You'd love them.
there's two other times where I've seen two drummers. One, I saw the Butthole Surfers in 1984 in a punk rock club
Hmm.
in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was hanging out with a bunch of friends of mine who were who were all students at UGA, like part of that Athens scene at the time, right? Really great guys, and we all went there, and I was the only one who hadn't done a bunch of acid because I didn't do it. And so I'm there with all my buddies who are tripping, like crazy. And the surfers come out, and it was a brother and sister who looked a lot alike. Both had shaved heads, and they had these giant drum sets in
Yeah.
front of each of them. No cymbals, no snare. So the whole night was just. And then Gibby came out, and he had literally about 150 clothespins in his hair. They
Uh-huh.
just like, clothespins hanging off the edge of his hair. He came out with a giant tuba with a microphone down the center of it. And it's like, dum, 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 dum. Ooh, ooh. It was the sensory experience. It was just, it was incredible. And that was like the first time I ever saw two drummers. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then about 20, I think it was 20 years ago, we played a festival in Mississippi, and we had to play after James Brown. After James Brown.
Good luck with that. Good
Woo!
slot.
We held our own. The crowd
Uh-huh.
stayed. We ended up having a really good show. It was such a wild bill. It was Grand Funk Railroad, James Brown, and us.
Sure, makes
And
perfect sense.
yeah, it makes perfect sense. And Grand Funk Railroad, it was like one of their first reunion tours, right?
Mm,
And so I sat on the rail of the stage right behind Don, the drummer.
right.
And he was just great. And I was like, wow, this is really awesome. This is great.
Yeah.
And then I sat on the same rail, and James Brown came out. And he had three women, the James Brown singers or whatever,
Right.
these women who were like early middle age, couldn't have been like more than like 42, 43. There was three of them, all wearing like sparkly, sparkly, sparkly dresses, and I was behind them, and they were all shaking their ass in perfect sync. And I was a young guy at the time, just like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in the world. And James Brown is just doing his thing, you know. And he had two drummers on stage, right?
Right.
And both of them were just standing there, right? One of them would be playing, and the other one would be watching James like a hawk. And then James would turn and go, hits! And then the
Yeah.
drummer, the drummer that was playing would stop, sometimes in the middle of a beat, like in the middle of a beat. And the other guy would pick it up perfectly. It was wild. And then like there were other times he turned to go, hits! And both drummers would play at the same time.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell he was saying or what he was doing. All I knew is that like at various points in the night, he would scream out numbers. 25, 5, 15, 50. I was
Like a
like,
quarterback.
what the hell is that? And he had his valet, the guy that put on
Yeah.
his cape,
Yeah.
he was writing the numbers down. That was James fining the band.
Yes. Yeah.
Whenever somebody he thought made a mistake, he'd scream out a number, and this guy would write it down. It was just nuts. And
Yeah,
I
well, that was
think,
in the documentary. They were there. One of the guys was talking that it's like if he
oh
started
yeah,
doing
yeah,
this,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
$5 per hand.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. It was something else. Did you ever see the Tales from the Tour Bus?
Yes, yes.
Oh
Mike
God, that's
Judge,
just
yeah, yeah.
Mike Judge. Both those series, both those seasons are great. The one with Johnny Paycheck is just amazing, amazing.
Well, if he does a third season, he's got to do one on you guys. I think that's a.
No, 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 no.
Some stories cannot be told.
TMI, TMI, TMI.
Uh-huh. So
Yeah,
going back to singing drummers for a minute, do you have
yeah.
any favorite singing drummers?
Well, yeah, like Ringo. I was a huge
Uh-huh.
Ringo fan growing up. Um, I never did really appreciate Don Henley as a
Mm,
drummer as much as a singer until I got
right.
older and I realized, okay,
Yeah.
he's not a slammer, but he's playing exactly what the song needs, and he's
Hmm.
such a great singer, such a great singer. I mean,
Yes.
even still to this day,
Yeah.
singing drummers, Multi, Multi. Multi was for the benefit of the audience. Multi was in the drummer in this 1960s band, somewhat obscure garage band called the Barbarians. And
Mhm.
the hook for Multi, the hook, was that he had a hook hand. He didn't have both his hands, and he played drums with the
Yeah.
hook.
With the
And they
hook.
wrote a song about Multi, and he sang it about being a drummer with a hook hand, and it was.
Not a lot of covers of that one, I don't expect.
Yeah, maybe that'll be Cover Your Ass Volume 2.
There you go. Multi. Yeah. And
Multi.
Grant Hart from Husker Du, I think, doesn't get
Yeah,
enough
oh
credit.
yeah, I loved Husker Du. I saw them on the Warehouse tour, and
Nice. Yeah.
I saw Bob Mould's band after Husker
Sugar.
Du, Sugar.
Hmm.
Sugar. In fact, one of the guys with me at that Butthole Surfer show was Dave Barbie, who was the bass player
Oh
for
yeah,
Sugar.
I've
Yeah,
talked to Dave. Yeah. Yeah.
great guy.
Yeah, I love
Probably one of
those.
the most genuine people I've ever met in this business.
Yeah, and has done a fine job on those Drive By Truckers albums.
Yes, he has. We actually, in the early days of Cowboy Mouth, we actually played one of his songs and we put it on an album, a song called Tears Towards Heaven, that I'm
Hmm.
trying to get the guys to do again. Dave's an excellent songwriter.
Oh yeah,
Excellent
definitely.
songwriter. Great engineer, just a talent all around, and just truly one of the most grounded, nicest people you'll ever meet in the music business.
Oh, that's been my experience. And something you have in common with Grant Hart is I see you both play in bare feet.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I never noticed that about Grant Hart, but I'm kind of, it just feels better.
Really?
And I sweat so much. I sweat so much that if I played in shoes, at the end of the night, the shoes would stink and I'd have to buy a new pair. So,
Right. But I would
but
think
I
your feet must
honestly,
slide off the pedals if you're sweating
yeah, they
that
do.
much.
They do.
Okay.
Dude, I slide off of everything. And, I'm just a sweaty mess. Even now, all these years later, I sweat like a whore in church whenever I play drums.
But your feet must be like leather on the bottom after all these
Pretty much, yeah.
decades.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. Pretty much. I can walk through bar rooms and,
But you don't, I'm
barefoot, and
guessing.
people go, man, there's glass everywhere. Be careful. I'm like, I
Oh
ain't,
yeah.
I ain't afraid of no glass.
Oh yeah. So you just truck on through
Yeah, just go through and get it done. Get it done.
wow, okay.
It's like, okay, well, I've had to, I've been to like emergency rooms after shows where they have to dig out glass from, my feet or my head or whatever. I'm a little more cautious these days, but I've lived a colorful life.
Well, hence the need for a documentary on it. Um,
No,
yes. So, and is it true you went to a Jesuit high school?
I did, yeah.
So, what the hell happened? What the hell went wrong?
Beats me. I just, look, I'm glad I went there.
Uh-huh.
It was a good school. I didn't enjoy it at the time. I was very much a little rebellious punk rock little shithead. Because the thing that bothered me was that I kind of saw through it all.
Mm,
It was kind of like I saw these things that were supposedly supposed to be, you know, tenets of higher learning and all that stuff. I'm just, at a young age, I had kind of the instinct to say, this is not anything about higher learning. This is about control. These are systems of control. And I understood that, but also being like a young, angry guy, I didn't see the benefits till I got older. And, some of those guys that I went to high school with, I still see and talk to this day, there is that value of community,
mm.
that wherever you come from, and that was a benefit for me that was very unexpected, but I enjoy it. It's nice to see people that you knew when you were younger and just like, so you got through it, huh? It's like, yeah.
To go back to the album for a minute, one of the other songs that I wanted to compliment you on is covering which everyone will know of as a Cher song, "Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves." Fantastic, fantastic choice.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You've heard it?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Oh, cool. Okay,
I've heard the
cool.
whole album. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a song. I used to have this clock radio in my window in my bedroom, and I'd leave the window open, and at night because I grew up in New Orleans, and most of the time it's hot, so I could leave my window open. And we lived next to an alleyway, and so the music would kind of bounce off the fence and come back, create this kind of real, kind of moody, echoey kind of thing that I really enjoyed. And growing up, around the time that they made the original Bad News Bears, it's
Hmm.
I developed a love of like '70s pop and rock and later punk rock. And I used to call these songs that I would hear on my clock radio, I used to call them clock radio classics, like Cher's Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, Sister Golden Hair by America,
America, yes.
Rock Me Slowly, Rock Me Gently, Andy Kim,
Uh-huh.
and later on things like Blondie's Heart of Glass and things like that, just clock radio classics, because they had to get all this sound and fire all this sonic imagination through a 2-inch speaker, and it's really a lot of those records caught my ear, and that was one. It just sounded like a circus. I hadn't heard the original for years.
Hmm.
I just knew the song like the back of my hand, and I was more used to our arrangement. I dialed it up on Apple Music the other day, and I was like, wow. I forgot how much I love this. It sounds like a circus. Sounds like a carnival. Like,
Yeah, it's got that calliope thing going.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah.
And yeah,
And
so
anybody who covers Ian Hunter is a friend of mine. So,
well, thank you very much. One of the great songwriters of all time. One of
Yes,
the
and again,
great songwriters.
underrated.
Yeah, yeah, underrated simply because he should be more well known than he is. But I mean, he's
Hmm.
had a good ride, and
Oh yeah.
I mean, Cleveland rocks with the Drew Carey show. You know, Once Bitten, Twice Shy with
Hmm.
what's the name of that band? White Lion? No, what were they called?
Oh geez.
Great
Yeah, I
White,
can't
Great
remember.
White,
Yeah. Right.
Great White. The band that had the fire, unfortunately.
Right.
But and he had a song that I actually do acoustically called Irene Wild, which is just one of the best songs
A classic.
ever written. That's like in my
Hmm.
top 10. Honestly, because I lived it, I was that kid.
Right.
So so yeah, just another night was a radio hit around New Orleans. And but I didn't know like that reading up on the song once we decided to do it, reading up on some of the history of the song, I didn't realize that Springsteen had uh, used Just Another Night as inspiration for Glory Days.
Mm,
He was like, he based Glory Days around Just
right.
Another Night. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I mean, if you listen to it, it also sounds like the Georgia Satellites, Keep Your Hand to Yourself.
Right.
That kind of just that
Sure.
that ballroom rock and roll. And if you listen to the lyrics, they just make no sense whatsoever. But
Yeah.
on a live album, Hunter said something like, "This is the song about a night in the Indianapolis City Jail," and that's it.
Okay.
And if you listen to it, it's like, obviously they were on drugs, going crazy. There's,
Hmm.
they end up, in front of a judge. Just it's nuts. So, and I was looking up the lyrics because I didn't know the lyrics. Because I knew the record, but I just sang. I just did my best read Michael Stipe interpretation and just picked out sounds.
Yeah.
And so and when I read the lyrics, it's just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But it's great. It was great. It was wonderful, and it makes sense. And I got my wife and a friend of ours who actually goes to college in Oklahoma City. Uh, a girl named Belle Fine, and they were the gospel chorus on the background at the end of the song. So
Nice. Doing their Ellen Foley.
yeah,
That's
very much so, very much so.
exactly, exactly.
And my wife Becky, so
Exactly. So, talking about favorite songs and great covers and all that, are there some covers that you guys keep in your back pocket up for a night when, oh, you know what, things aren't really, happening right now. If we pull this one out, we can slam it right at them, and it always works.
if the audience is in a foul mood or they're just being pissy, I'll pull out Dean Martin's "That's Amore." And
Really?
oh yeah, when the moon hits your eye. We've done it for years. We did it for years before. Another guitar player who since left the band used to sing it, and when he left, I started singing it. Um, Once in a blue moon, we'll start playing "Come and Get Your Love" by Redbone.
Oh, nice.
Which is
Yeah, very
another clock
classic.
radio classic, but
Yeah.
everybody knows it from the Marvel movies, and
Oh,
so but I never really learned to I never really learned the lyrics. All
uh,
I know is the chorus, so I just make up words. Hey, hey, I don't know the words to this song, but I know the chorus. Sing along, come and get your love.
that's all you
Just
need,
make.
right?
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you need.
Uh-huh.
And what else? We do a pretty cool version sometimes of "When the Levee Breaks."
Hmm.
Being from New Orleans, it's kind of a standard. And
Yeah.
oh, you're making me think. Oh, Ico. We do Ico pretty much every night.
Oh, well, there you go.
Um, uh,
That's a
what
winner.
else? That is a winner. You can never go wrong with that one.
No.
Um,
Have you guys ever tried Radar Love, Golden Earring?
that was a clock radio classic, but it's just never something that ever came up.
Yeah. I just thought with
Um,
the shuffle, but it's got then the guitars are fairly twangy. I think you could work with
I
that.
love doing the shuffle. That was the
Yeah.
thing. That was the thing for Dash Rip Rock back when I was a long-haired young punk rocker. It's like I could play a shuffle when a lot of drummers couldn't.
Mm. Yeah, it's
So
hard for yeah.
yeah, well, it's not a usual beat anymore. It
Right.
used to be the main beat, but even
Yeah.
like it was so funny if you
Well,
listen to a lot
rockabilly
of
is all shuffles pretty much, really,
that's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love shuffles. So um, oh, you're stumping me here. Now I'm gonna have to go look it up.
No
We
worries.
had done we had done I'm gonna be a wheel someday, pretty much since the band
Right.
first got together.
Oh, wow, okay.
I always loved that song.
Yeah, New Orleans classic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It must have been interesting growing up there, though. I mean, did
It was.
you must have seen some amazing shows when you were just a kid.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like in New Orleans specifically, but South Louisiana in general, but New Orleans specifically, you
Hmm.
grow up seeing Mardi Gras bands pretty much from the womb.
Right.
Mardi Gras parades. So there's this sense of rhythm that's just kind of ingrained in you. And people in New Orleans move differently. They talk differently. Uh, you know, everything's a rhythm. Everything is rhythm in New Orleans. It's like it's just the way we are down here, and it's one of those things that's just part of life. So, um, and the fact that I don't really know any other way. It was. I grew up there and didn't really leave to tour till I was like in my early 20s. So I didn't really know any place else existed.
Right.
It
Did you
was, there's,
appreciate it more after you left and
oh,
saw other
hell yeah.
places? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. I love New Orleans. New Orleans is great. It's always going to be my home. And, everybody there's out of their friggin' minds, pressing
Yes. No.
company definitely included. But, you got to go crazy to stay sane sometimes, especially these days.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, talking about New Orleans classics, for me, Wild Chupatulas has been on my
Watch out, Toulouse.
turntable for 1,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's so funny. We played Jazz Fest, New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Not It was a week and a half ago, and we were on the stage before Dumpster Funk, which is Ivan Neville's
Hmm.
band, and Pearl Jam, and this woman named Samantha Fish, also, who's a
Yep.
killer guitar player.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. She's wonderful, and just a great performer. Hell of a band. Her manager's an old friend of mine, and but Ivan and I, we go back when we were like 18. We knew each other when we were just little punk kids. And we were just sitting there talking. It's like, man, we still get to do this. It's like, yeah, we still get to do this. And it's like, you know, I don't know about you, but I think it's keeping me young. What do you say? He goes, oh yeah, definitely, it's keeping me young. I get to do this. And it's so funny because with Ivan, you know, his dad is Aaron, right?
Yeah.
Aaron's a big guy, but he sings like this.
Yes.
And Ivan is like me. He's not tall, but he's average size guy, and he sings like this. Just a great dude, just a talent, and we just go way back. And I like to mess with him sometimes and call him TN. TN, what's that for? Talentless Neville. You're the only one in your family that just can't. What's the deal? I don't know. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
So,
Great guy. Great guy. Great guy.
so aside from Taylor Swift, who would you like to cover a Cowboy Mouth song?
Actually, there's a girl who's like a fiddle legend around here in Louisiana in the South named Amanda Shaw, and she's making the rounds in Nashville right now. And she just actually covered one of our songs called "I'm Gonna Be Bad," and she actually did a really good version of it.
Nice.
And but who would I like to cover? You know what the weird thing was? Um, During lockdown, it was the first time I'd been off the road really for any extended amount of time since about 1985.
Hmm.
So there I was, just kind of stuck at home, as we all were.
Yep.
And I remember I started doing a bunch of acoustic shows on Facebook just to kind of pass the time and keep the fan base engaged and everything like that. And I couldn't play the same songs every week. And so I started going back over the Cowboy Mouth catalog, about which I've written about like 75 to 80% of it.
Hmm.
And I'd go back and look over these songs. It's like that I'd completely forgotten about. It's like, wow, that's pretty good. I forgot about that. And I'd relearn old songs like God Makes the Rain. Uh, what else? Take It Out on Me. Any Little Bit. Older songs like that. And I remember thinking, hey, this is pretty good. We should play some of this stuff. And so I'd like to get my songs and John's songs out more to the world, simply because I think they're good. And if I
Hmm.
didn't think they were good, we wouldn't play them. So.
All right.
But I mean, it's up to the listener to figure out, um, if it's something they want to hear or anything like that. I think
Well,
they're good, and
talking
we've managed
about
to do this for 35 years, so must be doing something right.
right. Well, talking about another next thing, you were saying that you're not necessarily in the interested in putting out full-length albums as much anymore because they don't, vanish. And then you could do more covers, but you could also pull some of these older songs out and rework some of them and redo some of them and kind of reintroduce them to people, you know?
Yeah, we've done that a few times. There's
Hmm.
about 5 or 6 or 7 or 19 or 128 versions of Jenny Says out there,
Oh, well,
and
sure.
yeah, maybe some of the old ones. It's like this. We've got some good strong stuff out there. There's a song that was on an album called Voodoo Shop called "This Much Fun" that I wrote. I wrote it in tandem with John and a couple of older members who have since left. I've thought about redoing that. Maybe it's a single because it's a strong song. It never really got its due.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
mean, after the decades that you've been around, you got a pretty large catalog of stuff, and obviously, you play somewhere, even if you're playing for an hour and a half, 2 hours, how many songs is that? A couple dozen,
yeah,
right? There's,
you can't play
yeah,
everything, and there's certain songs that people want to hear.
yeah,
They're gonna
exactly. You've got that core of stuff that you got to do
yeah
every night, and
yeah
so
yeah
there's a lot of
and
stuff that's probably waiting for, rediscovery.
yeah yeah that's true. But I'm not against it at all.
Hmm.
Maybe so. Maybe a Cowboy Mouth covers album.
There you
Hmm.
go.
Instead of cover your ass.
Toss in a few Red Rocker tracks and some Dash Rip Rock, and Bob's your uncle.
Sounds good, man. Sounds
All
good.
right,
Instead
it's
of
a
cover
plan.
your ass, we can call this one Cover My Ass.
What more do you need? Though I've done all the work for you, sir.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to pay your percentage.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
I'm sorry.
sure.
I think we're
Give me,
losing transmission. It's
yeah,
starting
give
to
me,
go.
yeah, going through a tunnel. All right,
We're
my friend.
glitching. We're glitching.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, I think I've taken up enough of your valuable time today.
Well, thank you.
So I will let you get back to whatever it is, whatever the hell it is you do during the day when you're not playing music. Yeah, I know. We'll keep that secret.
Don't tell anybody.
I won't. And hopefully we'll get you guys back up to Canada sometime
I'd love
soon.
to. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I would love to do a run with. We did 2 arena runs in the early 2000s with Bare Naked Ladies.
Nice.
Yeah, they're old friends of ours, and we actually have been doing some shows with them within like the past 4 or 5 years, in conjunction with the Hootie guys and things like that. Those guys, I love those guys, and they're one of the best bands I've ever seen in my life.
Amazing musicians, all of them. I was
All
at
of them.
a party once after the Juno Awards up here, and
Hmm.
two or three of the guys from Bare Naked Ladies and some other bands, all Warner acts. They had a jam
Yeah,
stage, and these guys get up there and they just start hammering out Black Sabbath songs, and it's just like, you're looking at these guys who you're used to, $1 million in one week, and it's,
yeah.
War Pigs at full volume. It's kind of like,
You
okay.
know what? You know what's funny? Speaking of which,
Hmm.
we did the Rock Boat a bunch of times, right? And and that's sponsored through this band called Sister Hazel. Have you ever heard of
Hmm.
them? They're out of
Yep.
America. Yeah, great band,
Yep.
great guys, great band. And they started this cruise thing. This is about 25 years ago, where they would get rock bands on cruises, and it turned into basically a festival on the water. And one of the shows they did was it was a Van Halen tribute with Ken, the lead singer, and the guitar player and the bass player. But they had the drummer from Better Than Ezra, this guy named Travis McNabb at the time,
Hmm.
and it was one of the best shows I ever saw. And I like Van Halen, but I'm not
Yeah.
a big fan. Our
Yeah.
bass player Brian, he's a big fan, and but it was just stunning. It was so great, and it was like, wait a second, these guys are playing Van Halen and
Yeah.
they sound awesome. It's
Yeah.
like, right. But I mean, like the last rock boat we did, the Hazels did, I think it was either the last one or the one before, they did a version of Jenny Says live. It's actually better than us.
Nice.
Yes,
All
Ken,
right.
I'm with you.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll see you somewhere down the road.
All the best, man.
All right. Bye.